Hello, Lake County, Florida, and welcome to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Lumber and Supply. I'm your host, Don Magruder, and you're listening to my 790 AM WLBE in beautiful Leesburg, Florida. And I also like to welcome our viewers who are watching us on Lake Sumter Television, LSTV, and Appleseed Marketing on Bright House 199, Comcast 13, and Florida Cable 4. Since 1945, Romac Lumber has been serving homeowners and contractors throughout Central Florida. Even though lumber is the company's last name, its heart and soul belongs to doors and millwork. Nobody, and I mean nobody, has more experience in Lake and Sumter counties when it comes to doors, millwork, and garage doors. Each year, thousands of people here locally turn to Romac Lumber for their best quality service and for all their door entry systems. To discuss door entry systems today, I have two experts on today's show. For the first half hour, I have Chuck Shoup, the manager of Romac Doors. Chuck has been with Romac Lumber for 18 years, but he has more than 40 years of custom door and millwork experience. During the second half hour, I have Jim Chappett of Romac Garage Doors, who just celebrated his 35th year with Romac. Jim is a true expert when it comes to garage doors, openers, and remotes. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of helpful tips, and information from these two guys. With that, I'd like to introduce Chuck Shoup, the manager of Romac Doors. Hello, Chuck. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Don. Thank you for having me back.
Chuck, we're going to be discussing a lot of helpful tips today about doors. If a listener or viewer hears something that they would like more information today, can you tell them how they can call or visit Romac Door and Millwork?
The door plant is located at 700 East Main Street in downtown Leesburg. We have a direct line to the door plant office, which is 352-314-3169, or you're welcome to call my cell number at 352-267-1462.
And I just want to hit on one thing. A lot of people do not realize in historic downtown Leesburg is a full functioning door and millwork shop that has a full staff of people, and every day you're doing custom wheel work, aren't you?
Absolutely, Don. We sure are.
Now, Romac Door and Millwork is Lake County's premier door and millwork shop. Take a few moments and discuss the capabilities of the door and millwork shop.
Well, Don, we first started out hanging interior and exterior doors, which we continue to do. But we have expanded in our line in that we build our own pocket frames, which is one of the finest in all of Florida. We also have expanded our custom area in which we do custom moldings. We'll do fireplace fronts. We'll do trim for openings. Just about anything somebody can dream up. We'll even custom cut plywood. Of course, there'll be a fee for that, but we'll custom cut plywood if you have a project. Bring in your cut list, purchase your material at Romac, and then we'll cut that plywood to size for you.
Now, one advantage that Romac Doors and Millwork has is that you're a master cabinet builder in your previous life, and we have another master cabinet builder with us. Plus, we have a lot of fellows in there with tremendous woodworking skills. So you're actually more of a full-service millwork shop than anything, aren't you?
Yes, sir, we sure are. And the cabinet background gives us the ability to look at detail, to be very meticulous on size and fit. So we kind of take it a step further than maybe the average door shop.
In other words, say you have a piece of furniture or something in your house and you need a custom piece cut for it. They can come down, you can sell them the maple and custom cut it. That way it's ready to go, isn't it?
That's correct, Don. The other thing is we encourage anybody that might be a amateur or hobbyist furniture maker or a cabinet maker, if they have anything out of the ordinary that they need, and we're going to discuss it a little bit later, our ability to do custom moldings, we can handle any of that type work. That's
amazing. Well, let's first talk about a little bit about doors. You know, there's a lot of homes that have old, rusted, dinged up metal exterior doors. And many of these homeowners, and especially the wives, want these doors replaced. And it seems like a big deal, but you know, you've got a system over there. It's pretty easy. First, talk about your alternative to metal doors and how they can be replaced sometimes without even replacing the jamb and casing. And for purpose of our discussion, so everyone understands, the jamb is the inside portion of the wood of the door that's attached to the wall, and the casing's the outside. But I understand you can replace doors without having to replace that, can't you?
That's correct, Don. The alternative to steel doors now is fiberglass, and that's really the way to go. The manufacturers have put a very low warranty on the steel doors here in Florida, mainly because of the high humidity and temperature. The fiberglass doors do carry a limited lifetime warranty. They have treated them in such a way that if it does have any wood in it, it is treated and it is fully warranted. There's two different brands. One has a PVC edge, one has a treated wood edge. Both have the same lifetime warranty. You're talking about having one replaced. Is if the frame or the jamb is in good shape, we'll send our service tech out. He'll measure all of the locations of the hinges and of the door locks, and we'll fabricate a new door to go back into that opening without ever disturbing the frame or the jamb that's in the house.
And if someone were interested in that, what phone number would they use to call?
They need to call the direct line at the door plan office, and Debbie or Mark will be happy to set up a schedule. Our service tech's name is Randy. He'll come out and measure it up, and that number that you can locate them at is 352-314-3169.
You know, Chuck, a lot of people, though, do have problems with their jambs on their exterior doors. Unfortunately, with Florida's weather and sprinklers, a lot of times you'll have rot at the bottom. Talk to our listeners and viewers about the remedy for that. There are new technologies and solutions that are really preventing the rot issue, aren't they?
That's correct. We have two different type jambs that both have lifetime warranties on. One is made by Frame Saver, in which it's still a wood jamb. You still get all the properties of a wood jamb at the upper end, but at the bottom they put a composite piece that actually touches the concrete, and that's where the rot begins. It begins in the end grain at the bottom and works up. If you have decent protection, that's the way to go. If you don't have any protection on that door, it's an outside door that the wind blows, the rain blows, a full composite jamb, which is that same composite material, but the entire jamb is made out of that, and that's really the way to go. The upcharge is very insignificant considering you will never have to replace that again.
And we do need to point out, regular exterior doors, which most people have on their houses, are not submarine doors. If you have no overhang, if you have direct rain coming onto them, they're going to leak because they're not, I think water intrusion's only at 25, 30 miles an hour. Am I correct in that?
That's correct, Don, yes.
Now, I know you build a better door and you mitigate as much of that as you can, but proper hangovers in the house are very important, aren't they?
That's correct. The other thing that you have to be very careful of, the door can be properly fabricated, properly installed, but a lot of people will take a pressure washer that has 2,500, 3,000 pounds of pressure and shoot onto that door, between the door and the jamb. Believe me, water will come in at that point. You are correct. I think it's 35-mile-an-hour water intrusion that will keep, the doors will keep that out. But just be very careful of putting that pressure washer on it and then thinking that it's leaking. The pressure washer will penetrate in deeper.
You're listening to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Lumber. I'm your host, Don Magruder, and we're having a wonderful conversation about doors with Doors and Millwork with Chuck Shoup. He's the manager of the Romac Door and Millwork Shop, and you're listening to my 790 AM WLBE. And if you're viewing this, you're watching on LSTV, courtesy of Appleseed Marketing. Another big problem with the exterior doors, and this is a big problem, big mistake that most people fail to do, is they don't paint them properly. Discuss how important it is to paint an exterior door.
Don, it's very important to completely seal all 6 sides. That means the top and the bottom, both edges, the long edges down, and then both surfaces. The tops and the bottoms of all of the exterior doors are made from a composite material now, which helps alleviate any wood rot, but you want to seal them so that that door will keep its integrity.
And a lot of times the door will be hung and the painter will only paint the face. If you have a door installed, or if you're buying a new house, get a mirror or something and look at the top edge and the bottom edge and make sure they're painted, because if they don't, more than likely your door's going to have issues, isn't it?
That's correct. And the less overhang on your house, the more important it is to make sure all those edges are sealed.
What about a homeowner that has a solid exterior door and they'd like to add light, a glass light? A lot of times most builders are putting a 6-panel door in the house, and they'd really like to have some type of light in there. I understand that the Romac Door and Millwork Shop offers an alternative for that.
That's correct, Don. If you have a 6-panel door on your house and you want to put glass in it, whether it be a full decorative glass or you just want to add a little light, any rectangular cutout that we can make on that, there's about 5 or 6 different sizes that will fit in that door. What we do is we send Randy, our tech, out to your house. He brings a trailer along in which it has a machine in it that he'll take your door off its hinges, take it out, make the cutout in it, put the proper insert in it that you've selected, and return your door back to your house. The advantage there is you're not having to purchase a new door. Again, remember, it has to be a rectangular cutout. If you wanted to change to an oval or something like that, you would have to purchase a different slab.
And that's what one point you just made. It's really important. You're offering alternatives that don't require the whole door being replaced, and thus saving the customer a lot of money and time in the door price and labor.
That's correct. And in most cases, it won't even have to be repainted. The frames of the inserts will be white. If you like that color on there, that's fine. And the door would not even have to be repainted. We use your locks, your door, your hinges all over again.
Chuck, I bet there's a lot of homeowners listening and watching the program today who have exterior doors that are warped, they drag on the bottom, or they're missing weather strip because their little doggy has come and scratched it off. What can be done about these issues? What can you guys do about these issues? Because a lot of times people throw their hands up and saying, I can't do nothing about it.
We offer a full service door overhaul in which our tech comes out. He'll check the weather strip. He'll check the door if it's sagging. Many times it's just a matter of putting longer screws in the top hinge.
And let's hit on that just a minute. Most of the time when you have a exterior door sagging, it's because at the time of installation, they did not use the proper screw. Tell them about that, Chuck.
The top hinge is the hinge that's carrying all the weight. If you can imagine, the door is trying to pull that hinge out, and it's pushing the bottom one up to the jamb. So it's very important that in the top hinge you add longer screws that go through the hinge, through the jamb, and then to whatever framing is on your house, whether it's a 2x4 or whether it's a 1x pressure treated. And that is to draw that door back up and hold it straight. And going back to having the glass cut in your door, our tech is very conscious about not only putting the glass in and making sure it's proper, he'll add the longer screws because that door now weighs more than it did originally. But in his overhaul, he'll check the bottom sweep. If it's an in-swing, he'll check the threshold, the weather strip. He'll make sure it's hanging right, making sure your locks are latching, and everything is like it should have been back when it was new.
Well, I know at my house, I keep a couple of pieces of compression weather strip that's provided by Romac Door and Millwork Shop, because we have a little chihuahua that will scratch and tear it up. And it's real simple to pop it in and out. And I'm sure you can show people how to do that, can't you?
That's correct. That's correct. If you want to come by and purchase your weather strip, we'll take you to a door in the showroom and show you how easy it is to replace.
One of the hottest things in doors these days are the French doors with the built-in blinds. Everybody loves them because, as you know, blinds on a swinging French door get decimated. The animals tear them up. I understand y'all have a solution for changing those out.
We do. The blinds will come sealed between 2 panes of glass. The glass is not penetrated. The mechanism that operates them is actually magnets. And they come in the common sizes for both 6'8" high doors, which is what most normal door heights are, or even the 8'0" high doors. And our service tech can go out, take your existing insert out, and put a new insert in.
Chuck, let's take a minute, go inside the house and talk about interior doors and moldings. First off, what type of interior doors can you build at the Romac Door and Millwork Shop in downtown Leesburg?
We hang the molded hollow core doors, which is pretty standard for the industry today. They're a texture door or a smooth door. They come in a variety of sizes and a variety of panel configurations, and they even come smooth. We can do flush doors if you have a more modern house and you want a smooth flush door that doesn't have any panels. And also recently, with the upgrading of our custom department, we can actually make some interior doors in whatever wood species that you'd like.
We'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, one thing I want to hit on, there's a lot of customers out there, homeowners, have old style plain Luan or composite interior doors with no style. They're just flat. In other words, it's just a flat interior door. And the interior door technology in the last decade has really improved. And there's all kind of different styles, from arches to interiors. And quite honestly, the price is very similar. But a lot of people would love to upgrade their interior doors from those flat doors. And I understand y'all developed a pretty good system to solving that, and it really does save a lot of money because there's no carpenter required. Talk a minute about that.
What we do, Don, is that we can do it a couple different ways. We can send our service tech out. He'll take all the dimensions of all your hinge locations and your lock bores, and we'll also check the width and the height of the doors, and we will reproduce a door that'll go right back into that opening on either the same hinges, or of course new hinges if you prefer those. We have an order in the shop right now where somebody brought the entire house lot of doors in, and we're going to measure each one and prep up, and then they'll take them back out. What it saves is somebody being there at the house, measuring each one, hand routing, hand boring it. We'll do it on our automated equipment at the shop. And then the homeowner actually could take them back out and put them on if they were a little bit handy. If they don't want to do that, our service tech will be happy to do it for them.
So literally, you're 3 hinges away, unpinning 3 hinges to putting 3 great looking doors and putting new doors in the house, totally changing the look of the house. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Lumber. Our special guest is Chuck Shoup. He's the manager of Romac Door and Millwork right here in Leesburg, and we're talking about all the options for upgrading your doors and millwork at a less cost to you. In other words, we're doing it the easy way today. Chuck, you mentioned a little earlier that you do have new capabilities. Recently, because of business and the turnout, getting custom made doors like custom mahogany and cherry doors are almost impossible. And you have developed in your shop where you're building these interior custom doors. Talk a minute about your capability in building these doors that used to take 2 and 3 months to get.
We have invested in both the training of our personnel and the equipment to produce interior doors. What happened was we needed 3 maple doors. The lead time was longer than what our customer really wanted to wait. And so we decided to put our head together and get this going, and we produced those doors. We've since produced, we had to match a door in an office that was remodeled in which nobody knew who made the original doors, so we were able to match that. The other day, 2 doors came in which we ordered. The lead time extended way beyond what we thought it should have done, and when we really looked at it, we found out we could have produced those in probably 1/8 the time. So we do have the capabilities. If you have any door that you need made for a special area, or you want a house full of doors, but you might want them in hickory or in cherry or in mahogany, something that may be not off the shelf, we certainly can handle that for you.
If someone hears this and they're needing something along those lines, what number can they call?
I'll give you 2 numbers. First one is the direct line to the door plant office, which is 352-314-3169, or you're more than welcome to call me on my cell, which is 352-267-1462.
Now, Chuck, recently you've expanded the Romac Door and Millwork shop in downtown Leesburg to do custom moldings, and this is a big deal. You know, there's a lot of people that won't have unique moldings in the house, but the biggest draw for custom moldings, if you're buying an older home or if you have an older home and you're trying to match up something, talk a minute about some recent jobs in which you've had to match up stuff. And so you've got some things here in front of us. I know the people on the radio can't see it, but maybe some of our viewers, show them what we've got here and what you're doing in custom moldings. It's pretty awesome.
Well, Don, that same project that had that maple door that nobody knew who produced also had about 4 different types of moldings in it that they did not know where the original purchase was made. So we had samples of it, and this particular one here happens to be the chair rail. So in order to make the chair rail, we first had to get a piece of it, and then we make a template. This is the template, and that template matches that chair rail exactly, right there. And from that template, we have a very fancy machine that's no more than a giant key cutter, and then we create the knife that cuts that. So we not only have a custom-made molding that matched that exactly, we also have the ability to reproduce that in the future. We have one here that's a new project. This is a historical restoration. This is not available off the shelf, so I'm working on the template now. That will be used to create the knife, and we'll be able to reproduce this. This is probably somewhere around 75 or 80 years old, which is no longer on the available to buy. Then this particular one, this is a common one, but we couldn't get it in a different species of wood. So we had the template made, the knife made, and now we can make that particular molding in any species of wood that someone may need.
And that's real important, because you had a situation a week or so ago in which someone needed less than 5 feet of molding, or they were going to have to replace a whole house full of molding, basically. And you know, most of these jobs is for room addition. You've got a choice to make. Do you want to replace a whole house of molding, or do you want to replace a little bit? That's a big deal. That's a lot of cost, isn't it?
Don, we have a job now that somebody needs 7.5 inches of molding to match something else. Now, he'll purchase 8 feet of it because we have to make the knife. We also have a job in the shop now where a piece of furniture, a dog ate a piece off of it, and in order to bring that furniture back up to where it should be, what it should look like, they need 42 inches of a piece of molding. So we're going to make a knife and make that match.
And the thing about, you're saving a piece of furniture.
Absolutely.
And that's a wonderful thing. And that's what a custom shop, unlike the big box stores that can't handle this stuff, this is a custom millwork shop. This is what you're doing at Romac Doors right here in Leesburg.
Yes, sir.
If a homeowner needed custom molding, custom trim like this, what do they need to do?
We either need a very accurate drawing, or if you can bring a piece in of the trim you're trying to match, we'll make a drawing of it onto a template like we did on this one. And once we do that, then we can trim it out and make the knife off of it. This is simply a piece of plastic that we shape to make sure that it matches perfectly to that profile.
And what phone number should they call if they have questions about custom moldings?
I'll give you my cell number because I would probably be able to answer it quicker without having to pass that call along, and that's 352-267-1462.
Now, one thing you do at your shop, and a lot of people don't see these, but it's great, you make a custom pocket door frame. You use special hardware, special lumber, and for most people don't realize a pocket door frame fits inside the wall, and it allows an interior door to go inside the wall and you move it out. The problem, most people buy a cheap pocket door frame made out of scrap lumber. That's what most of it's made out of, and they wind up the doors rub. There's a problem. You've engineered and developed this pocket door frame with some super hardware that prevents all that. Talk a minute about the custom pocket door frames you guys are building.
Well, our pocket door frames are made from a Gorman spruce, which is a fine Canadian spruce. We use the hardware from L.E. Johnson, which is considered the best in the industry. So our pocket door frame is something I think is a work of art, but it gets buried behind all the drywall. You never see it. Unless you watch your house being built, you'll never see our pocket door frame. But you'll appreciate the quality that goes into it when that door does not rub, bind, or come off the track.
Well, and you've engineered some specialty things, and we won't get into it, but you are selling pocket door frames across the state of Florida because of the quality issue, and they're so good. That's part of another deal that you do at Romac Custom Doors and Millwork that other people can't.
Yes, sir. That's absolutely true.
Chuck, talk about if someone needed a full quote, they can bring their plans in. You do both new construction, remodel, additions, add-ons. If someone needed a quote, what do they need to do?
They can call, if it's a simple quote and you know what you're wanting in that door unit that you're needing to get, you can call in and you can describe it to the people in the office. We have Debbie, we have Mark, and we've added a new gentleman, Andy, who has many years experience in the industry. Any of those three can help you. If you're building a new house and you'd like to bring a print in, you can bring it into the Leesburg location at 700 East Main Street in Leesburg. The door plant office is located in that main building, and they'll be happy to take a look at the print, show you catalogs and designs, and help you get that quote rolling along.
And once again, Chuck, describe briefly your scopes of work as far as doors and molding, what type of doors and molding you can do at the door plant and millwork shop.
On the exterior side, we do fiberglass. We still do steel if someone insists on that, but fiberglass is the way to go. We still hang wood doors. We'll talk to you about the applications there. We do interior, we do custom moldings, we'll do fireplace fronts. Anything you can dream up in wood, we can probably help you with.
Well, Chuck Shute from Romac Door and Millwork, we appreciate all the helpful hints, and those were great money-saving hints that can allow people to upgrade their house and save a lot of money, and it's really great advice. Once again, thank you, Chuck Shute from the Romac Door and Millwork shop, and when we return, we're going to talk about garage doors. That's a big subject.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Welcome back to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Lumber. I'm your host, Don Magruder, and you're listening to my 790 AM WLBE in beautiful Leesburg, Florida. And if you're watching this, then you're seeing us on LSTV, Lake Sumter Television, and Appleseed Marketing on Comcast Cable 13, Bright House Cable number 199, and Florida Cable 4. Jim Chappett of Romac Garage Doors has 35 years experience with the company, and there's no one in Central Florida who knows more about garage doors. Jim, welcome, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Don. Thanks for having me on the show.
Once again, we're going to be discussing a lot of great garage door tips, and if someone wanted to give you a call later to discuss something they saw or heard today, where are your offices located, and what's a good number they can call you?
I can be reached at the Lady Lake office at 352-748-4575. That's at 722 Duck Lake Road. We also have a location in Leesburg. It's 352-314-0893, and that's at our main branch in 700 East Main Street.
And it's important that your garage door company has a real office, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. If you have a problem or you need something, that way you can come by. You can just be happy to help you with it at the store. If you need another remote or something like that, we can just help you out with it instead of having to pay a service charge for somebody to come out.
And I'm going to use the term fly-by-night or pickup truck. We're going to maybe use the other term. Most people that are fly-by-night or pickup truck people, they will not have an office, and that's a big deal, especially if you're looking for long-term service and if you're not wanting to be ripped off. But we'll talk about that a little later. Jim, first, why don't you give our viewers and listeners the anatomy of a garage door and opener? What are the various parts? Because that's a lot of different moving parts there. And in fact, it's probably the most used complex part of any house, I'd say.
Yes, it is, Don. I tell you, there's so many parts. When we're training people, when we dump out that first hardware box and they see it, they get a little overwhelmed. But we'll discuss some of the major parts. You have your garage door sections. Those are the panels that we hardware out. We put our hinges and rollers and connect our cables to those to lift the door. Then of course you have your springs, your counterbalance springs that lift the weight of the door for you. Then one of the main things, if you're not wanting to operate the door manually, would be the garage door opener. They come in chain, belt, and screw type drives, and they're basically drawbar type openers that raise and lower the door for you.
You know, Jim, garage doors are very heavy, and keeping them in balance is very important, because if you have to exert pressure to lift a garage door, a lot of pressure, or if a garage door won't stay up, that means they're out of balance. Exactly what is meant by keeping it in balance, and tell us why it's so important and how is it kept in balance?
Well, basically your garage door is kept in balance by the springs. The springs are actually wound and tightened to lift the weight of the door as your counterbalance.
And those springs are attached where, Jim?
The springs are over the top of the door. They go across the top of the header at the where the lintel is, up over top of the door.
And typically, how many doors, like if it's a 16-foot garage door, how many springs are there?
Most of your wind-loaded 16-foot doors will have at least 2 springs on them.
Now, these springs are very, very dangerous, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're under a tremendous amount of pressure, and you have to really have some knowledge of what you're working on there. The main thing is having the proper tools and knowing what you're dealing with. This spring, I mean, I'm just putting a little wind on a spring right now, and it's basically wanting to fly backwards and unwind. Most of these springs have 7 to 8 turns on them.
And be honest with you, Jim, it's very dangerous for someone who's not trained or who does not have the proper tools to try to wind this spring. And unfortunately, there have been a lot of people seriously hurt and killed by these springs breaking off the wall or having it.
That's correct. What most of the calls that we get, it's unfortunate, where people have tried to work on these springs or even change a spring themselves. You know, we get a lot of calls, you know, that somebody just, you know, my husband was out or somebody was working on our door and something slipped, and most of the time they end up going to the doctor or the hospital. A lot of times it's broken fingers, it's usually hand injuries. Some head injuries have actually been caused by this, and some people have actually been killed by them. So
once again, our cautionary tip is, unless you're trained and have proper tools, do not do anything with the springs. This time of year, springs catch a lot of grief. Between Florida heat and now we're going to go into 30s maybe, those things have a tendency to break, don't they?
Well, they do, because anytime there's an extreme change in the temperature, the steel on the spring steel is expanding and contracting. And usually when we have extra cool temperatures, even freezing temperatures, that's when we get a lot of calls. And also in the summertime, when we get some, you know, really hot days, those 100-degree days, we get quite a few calls.
One of the biggest problems in the garage door industry is what I call the yellow page garage door companies. Now, these are the pickup truck garage door companies that give the appearance of a local office, but there's none to be found. But they're actually subcontractors employed by companies in Orlando and Tampa. These pickup companies, pickup garage door or yellow page garage door repair companies, they make their money by how much they can sell the homeowner, how much of a crisis. And typically, the problem with most people in garage doors, it's a crisis situation when their door won't open. And these companies know that, and they exploit it. Recently, you had a situation in the villages, and I want to point this out. Senior citizen villages that was being ripped off by one of these companies. Take a few minutes and tell our listeners the story, because I think it's important people understand how not to get ripped off by garage door companies.
Well, what had happened to this lady was she had a broken spring, so she called a company. They came out and replaced her spring, among many other things that more than likely didn't need to be replaced. Basically, your basic spring change on a door with 2 springs should run anywhere from $150 to $250. They charged this lady over $800, and she was real concerned about it after she got the bill. She called them because she had a broke spring. They came in and did a lot of other work. They showed on the paperwork. She actually brought it to our office because she didn't know where to take it. She didn't want to take it to wherever they were located, out of Tampa or Orlando or somewhere far away. She didn't actually know where their office was. So she brought it by our office. We looked at it, and it was really a terrible thing.
And that's the thing, for $800 something, you could replace the whole door, but they had her putting.
They changed out all the rollers. They changed the cables from galvanized to a high grade stainless cable. They changed out drums, torsion tube. They changed out a lot of things that really didn't need to be changed. I mean, when we do a service and we look at rollers, the main roller that you want to be concerned with are the upper rollers on the door, because they roll the farthest in the horizontal position. Most, like your bottom roller, it's just rolling straight up and down the track. It's not under a whole lot of pressure. Unless it's a very old roller and it's froze up, really there's no need to be, changing that.
The sad thing, you told me a lot of those parts would really never need to be replaced, and the door was only a few years old. So it's a cautionary tale. You've got to have a company you can trust, and unfortunately a lot of people are getting taken advantage of. You're listening to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Lumber. I'm your host, Don Magruder, and we're having a wonderful conversation with Jim Chappett from Romac Garage Doors. We're talking about garage doors and how to save money and what things to watch for and not be ripped off. Jim, how does a homeowner, your car's trapped in the garage, how does a homeowner avoid getting ripped off by these unscrupulous dealers? What should they ask?
Well, one of the main things is it's best to know who you're calling and call somebody in your immediate area. The other thing is, if you know you have a broken spring, and the way you're going to be able to tell is if you look at that spring and it's going to be up above the door on the lintel. If you look at that spring, you're going to see gaps in the coils. Okay? When this spring is wound, the diameter actually gets smaller and it grows about 2 to 3 inches. So when that spring breaks, you're going to have a 2 to 3 inch gap in the coils.
And I understand you have the ability in an emergency situation to mend the spring till one can be replaced, don't you?
If you would happen to have maybe it's a real old door or a specialty door, and we wouldn't have that exact same spring, basically what we can do is we can clamp the spring and rewind it and get you operating until the proper spring can be ordered in.
Now, Jim, what type of garage doors do you stock, and what type can you work on or you can get?
We can work on most any of your industry standard doors, and some of them that aren't industry standard. We can work on most anything. The main brand that we handle, some of the main brands are Clopay, Ideal, Rainer, and CHI. But we can service pretty much all brands.
Jim, if someone were in their home today, and first off, the biggest problem this time of year is the spring breaking, correct?
That's correct.
That's your number one problem. Say the spring breaks and they're in their home. How can they get out of the garage?
If they have a broken spring, the main thing, about the only thing you can do is if you have an electric opener on it, you could have somebody run the opener and help the door and lift it manually to get the vehicle out. But you have to be very careful doing that, because if the door should break loose from the opener, it would actually come down like a guillotine.
Okay.
And it can be very dangerous. So you can get your toes crushed, you could get hurt badly.
All right. What if there's a power outage and the opener doesn't open? What can be done with that?
Well, if you have a power outage, the main thing that you can do is you can go to the garage door opener and there'll be a manual release. It's usually a red cord with a red handle on it. And basically you just pull that cord down and it would release your manual release like so. Then you could raise the door manually.
Okay, so if the opener does not function, and we're going to talk about openers a little later on, if the opener doesn't function, you can lift the door by pulling a manual red cord and open it. A lot of people have problems with garage door openers. And we're going to start talking about it a little bit. What do you recommend in a garage door opener, Jim?
Well, I recommend mainly, personally, I like a chain drive unit. They make chains, they make belts, they make screw drive units.
Why do you like chain drive units?
Well, I look at the chain drive unit as basically, that was the unit that, you know, basically started out in the market on garage door openers. The other thing that I look at too is longevity. And when you get above 8 foot high in doors and you get into commercial type doors, any trolley opener on a commercial applications, 90% of those are chain drive units. So I like that. The belt drive's a good unit. I don't recommend them on large doors, 18 by 8 wind-loaded doors and things like that. It seems like they have a little bit of a tendency to want to bounce when they run sometimes with the belt. But on any of your smaller doors, I think those are wonderful. They're quiet. They're good running units.
And the predominant chain drive opener you're using is an All-Star?
Yes, I use an All-Star unit. It's made by Linear Corporation, and this particular unit has a 20-year warranty on the drivetrain.
All right, Jim, say someone's listening to us and they walk out to the garage and they press their button and the door doesn't open. What should they check first? What sort of a step should they check to make sure before they call a service tech?
Well, the first thing that I would check is make sure you have power to that outlet in the ceiling and there hasn't been a GFI or a breaker tripped in the garage. If you have power to the unit and you push the manual push button on the wall inside the garage, you know, right where you walk out of the house, and the unit doesn't run, then you're going to have basically, you know, a problem in the circuitry of the opener.
Okay.
Okay. Then what you would do is, if you needed to get out, because here's what generally happens: you're going somewhere, you got a night out, or you got plans, or you got a doctor's appointment, or you got a tea time, or something like that. You walk out in the garage, you hit the button, nothing happens. So the simplest thing to do at that point is, you know, if you don't have power, if you do have power and the door is not functioning, just pull the manual release down and raise the door by hand. Now, some people think if you pull that red cord, you just pull on the red cord and it'll open itself. That's not the way it works. All the red cord does is release the door from the opener trolley so that you can raise the door manually. And
if the springs are balanced right, it shouldn't take much to lift up. Now,
that's correct.
Now, one thing they've recently come out in the last couple of years, it's a great product, is a DC backup current for garage door openers. So if the power does go out, you know, for example, say you're coming home in a thunderstorm and power's out, talk a little bit about how great that is.
Yeah, well, if you've got an AC unit, which is your standard, you know, opener, and the power's out, you're going to have to enter through your front door and then manually raise your door if you want to get the vehicle in. The DC motors, they're basically lower voltage, and they have a battery backup in them. And they'll usually cycle the door up to 15 to 20 cycles on a good battery.
So there's an opportunity to get in your house. You're listening to Around the House, sponsored by Romac Lumber. Our special guest is Jim Chappett. We're talking about garage doors. And if you're watching this on LSTV, Lake Sumter Television, and Appleseed Marketing. Jim, we want to go back to garage doors. What are the basic sizes? And talk a little bit about that golf cart door you guys, y'all install thousands of those a year. And I didn't realize how big they were.
Sure, Don. The golf cart door is usually a 6 wide, 7 high, or 6 wide, 8 high. And then your sizes from there go, you know, we can special order pretty much any width, pretty much. But your standard sizes would be 6 by 7, 8 by 7, 9 by 7, 10 by 7, 12s, and 16s and 18s. And then also those same sizes in the 8-foot tall doors.
But you do have the very popular golf cart doors, and it's amazing how many people are putting them in because of their new golf carts are being made legal everywhere.
Golf carts are a very popular item right now, and we do install a lot of those. There's a lot of instances in some of your mobile parks around, mobile home parks, where they have a double set of swinging 6-foot doors, and a lot of those people are changing out to overhead sectionals.
You know, a lot of people call you every day because they can't get the garage not only up, they can't get it down. Now, first off, you guys prefer to try to do some service work over the phone, give them tips. If someone called and they can't get their garage door down, say they've opened it and it won't come down, what phone number can they call?
Well, they can give us a call at 352-748-4575, or they can call us at 352-314-0893.
But let's talk a minute, because a lot of people get ripped off on service fees because their garage door won't come down. They're panicked to death. Their stuff is going to be exposed, and a lot of times it's a simple fix. If someone were to call you today and say, hey, my garage door's up, it won't go down, what would you tell them?
Well, probably one of the main calls that we get is, my garage door's open right now. Every time I try to close it, it gets within about a foot of the floor and reverses, or it'll only travel a foot in the open position towards going down. And in that situation there, we usually have them check the photo sensors and make sure that they're aligned correctly.
And let's point out what those are. At the new garage doors, at both edges of the door is a photo beam that prevents little animals from being crushed.
That's correct. That's correct. Or it also takes care of anything that's left in the opening period.
Yep.
Something's left laying in the opening. Federal law is they have to be mounted 4 to 6 inches off the floor, and that's mainly what they're for: entrapment, small child, animal, or anything that's left in the way. Let's just talk about that for just a second. Let's say you leave something on one side of the door opening. Maybe it's a bucket or something. You close the door on it. Now all of a sudden the door comes down, it hits the bucket on one side. Say the opener reverses, but it may throw that cable on that side.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you got a different issue. The door's sitting there kind of cattywampus in the opening, and it won't go either direction.
But you know, I've been told by some of your technicians, the biggest problem is people go out and sweep the garage and they'll lay the broom and dustpan in the view of the photo sensors, and that's the reason why the door won't come down. You hear that all the time, don't you?
That's correct. Or they'll go out and maybe blow off the driveway with an electric blower and catch one with the extension cord, and when they roll it back in and pull it back in the garage, they'll knock it out of it.
And that's one thing you guys are going to do. You're going to try to talk them through it rather than save them a service call, aren't you?
That's correct. The other thing that happens too is any door we install, we have 2 points of contact on it most of the time. We'll have an outside handle, and then we'll put a pull rope at the bottom. And what we do is we tie, when you start using your opener, you need to tie that rope up and get it out of the way, because what will happen too is that rope hangs down, and you wouldn't believe it, but as the door is coming down, that rope will trip the sensor and it'll go back up.
And of course, if you have a teenage child around the house, they're going to see a red rope and they're just drawn to pull the thing, and they'll disengage it. I've heard of that happen frequently.
We've seen that. We've had people call in and say, my door won't close or my door won't open. My chain's moving on my opener and on the rail up top, but my door's not coming up. And a lot of times somebody has pulled that manual release. And then, of course, you know, the other thing is, if you break a spring, of course, the chain's not going to move then. It's going to be in a bind.
Shifting gears, Jim, unfortunately these days, home security is a big issue. Families split, friends split, thieves are available, and garage door remotes get compromised, lost, and, you know, if you lose a garage door remote, a lot of times you've lost the key to your house. First off, you got a little gray remote there. Can they be programmed and can they be changed out, or can you get additional ones to add to it, Jim?
Yes, we can, all the above. We can replace them. We can add more to it. This particular remote that we use, you can actually program it. And the way it's done, it's a 3-button remote, and it's programmed through those 3 buttons. It can be reprogrammed. The other thing is, if you lose one, the best thing to do would be to clear the memory on the opener, and then any other remotes that you have, put those codes back in it. And we can walk you through that most of the time over the phone also.
And that's the thing about it. If someone has a remote from your group, they can call you at what number?
You can call us at 352-748-4575 or 352-314-0893.
And you'll try to walk them through the program. Now, the hottest thing is keyless entries. And I've got one on my house, and for a teenage daughter or a teenager that loses keys, talk a minute about how handy keyless entries are. And they're so easy to install.
That's correct. The keyless entry is basically a remote that's mounted on the outside of the house, and it's a digital keypad. And the MVP that we use, and we also have the LiftMasters in those, but the way that one operates is you basically turn it on first and then punch in your 4-digit code to raise the door. It's installed on the jamb on the outside with 2 screws. And it's very simple to install and easily to program.
Now, Jim, one thing that your group offers, you offer a garage door tune-up program. And the nice thing, and you're not going to sell anybody something they don't need, and it's recommended every year, but the biggest thing, you have to do maintenance on garage doors. What are some of the things you're going to do on a yearly garage door maintenance? And unlike the yellow page garage door companies, you're not going to sell people they don't need.
Yeah, we won't sell them anything they don't need, but basically what we do is we come out to the house, we basically run the door, we check the sensitivity on the operator, we release the manual release on the door, we check the spring tension, make sure the door is balanced. We check the remotes to make sure they're operating properly. We also check all the rollers, and we lube everything. We lube the springs, the rollers, and all the hinges. And
you don't recommend grease for lubing because of the dirt, do you?
Well, what happens with the grease, if you get a windy day, it blows sand in it, and then all of a sudden you got gritty grease. So, and the other thing is, you know, the grease is dirty, it's greasy, it discolors your concrete and things like that in the summertime when it gets hot and wants to run off. So basically what we use is we try to use a good clear lubricant. And that way, if you drip on your concrete or something, it's not staining your concrete. And it also helps lubricate and keep the rollers and track and hinges clean.
And you do, real quickly, you offer 24-hour and weekend service. What's the phone number for 24-hour service?
Our 24-hour service is 352-577-9030.
And you're located in the Villages and Leesburg, and you can cover all garage door needs, but most importantly, you can be a source of information if someone has a question and give you a call.
That's correct.
All right, well, Jim Chappett would like to thank you for being our guest. We've learned a lot about garage doors. Hope our viewers and listeners did. I'd also like to remind you that you can catch Around the House every Monday from noon until 1 p.m. on WLBE 790 AM. And don't forget the Around the House column, which is heard Wednesdays and which can be read Wednesdays in South Lake Press and Saturdays in the Daily Commercial. Once again, we thank you for viewing and listening today. And until next week, we'll catch you around the house.